Have you ever, as a leader, found yourself really wondering, why can't I get my staff, my team to really share their ideas, to use their voice? Maybe as a team, it sounds more like, "Ugh, I just feel like as a team, we don't all get our opinions. We don't all get to voice our ideas for the project." No matter what it looks like for you, we can have great systems and structures in place, but actually empowering, uh, getting people to utilize their voice to their fullest potential, to be that fullest contribution, is really a challenge. And that's why LEAP, on our weekly webinar today, is really going to spend time talking about empowering employees to really use their voice in the workplace. And so last week, we spent a lot of time on employee feedback loops, which was more about the systems that need to be in place. And systems are extremely important. But this one today is all about, yeah, we have systems in place, but how do we really empower those employees, empower ourselves, empower our teams to utilize their voice to their fullest potential so they're heard and the organization can move forward in the most successful way possible. So before we really get into it, my name is Ryan Boda. I'm one of the lead coaches at LEAP Training and Coaching, and I am a leadership and a team building specialist. And what I really work on is the communication dynamics that happen and the science of what goes on when we interact within the workplace, what things close us down and open us up, and how to really work with the team and really thrive and collaborate together. And LEAP Training and Coaching is a professional development organization that helps put on these webinars to really support people and the clients. And really what our real mission is to develop a company's greatest asset, their people. And that's what we firmly believe, is that all of us, our greatest assets are our people, and we need to continue to invest and develop them to become their fullest self. And today here, we're going to be talking about developing, empowering them to use those voices. So from our very first time this month, we talked about employee engagement. Do you remember the statistic? 85% of employees are not engaged. 85%. And so if you are not engaged, I can guarantee you're not using your voice. You're not sharing your ideas and your contributions. And so I want to share a couple things, because as you look at using your voice, speaking up, there are a lot of really interesting studies that have been done. And the first was a study in healthcare at hospitals. And I thought this was so unique because they studied like a bunch of teams came in, nurses and doctors, and they worked on basically in a simulation on some surgeries. And what they found was, over the course of doing all of these different simulations, that over the course of a year, 400,000 people die in hospitals because of miscommunication, because a nurse did not feel that they had the ability, the power, the space to voice their opinion against a doctor, to say, hey, I don't know if we should do that. Think of the power that there is in every single eyes that are happening, that are seeing a project, that are seeing a surgery at a hospital, being able to go, hey, that doesn't quite look right, versus just the one voice, the leader, the physician. And so you saw that 400,000 people died annually because of a miscommunication. Take that a step farther into like finances. So for a bank, it has been found that the US has fined banks more than $250 million, all on things that were unethical behaviors that had somebody just had the voice, the ability to speak up before. And we have, right now, I know that your head is flooded with 1,000 examples of where you read about, hey, had someone just spoken up? And so where do we create that space to empower them? And then one step farther, you've got that there's a lot of studies that show that, there's a lot of harassment, bullying, putting down that happens in the workplace. And that they found that over 75% of employees have experienced some sort of harassment, put down, bullying, toxic environment, and have not spoken up. And so it's about, how do we get people to really speak up? And so yes, those are all statistics and data and things like that, but I want to put it into perspective, because I love this study that was done, and it's very famous now, but it was really a study on when and why and what pressures allow someone to speak up or not speak up. And so I want to share it with you for a moment. So what they did was they had a room full of smoke, which would say fire, correct? And so what they did was they put people in the room in three categories. Number one, alone. And they looked at what happened. Did they speak up? Did they say to somebody that there was a fire? Then they put them in a room with just a bunch of people who were just doing their own thing and not even paying attention to the fact there was smoke. And they said, what percentage of people speak up now? And then lastly, this is most important to know, they put them in a room where, yes, there were people doing their job, but there was also one person who was designed to kind of shrug off the fact that there was smoke in the room. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Think about that. So, what do you think happened? Well, when we go in the room alone, 75% of the time, we speak up. We share with someone that we see smoke and that there's a fire. So 75%. Now, go into that room with other people, i.e., go into a meeting. And if everyone else is just continuing, only 38% of people said that they saw smoke, that there was a potential for fire. Only 38. That means we dropped off almost half. Now, one last step farther. With the one person shrugging off, saying, oh, I don't see anything. Only 10% spoke up. 10%. We go from 75 when we're alone to 38% when we're with others, only 10% when someone says it's okay. Imagine the impact in the workplace with your teams, with your meetings, when one person says, don't worry about that ethical thing. Don't worry about that piece of it. The people who will speak up and provide feedback and let them know that they're not quite comfortable with that dwindles substantially. And so, whether we're a leader and think about these statistics and say, wow, my opinion matters. If I tell them we're not going to worry about this, they will not speak up to share about it. That's why in the study about doctors and nurses, where a lot of this comes from, it is that with that 10%, with that physician who says, hey, don't worry about it, just give me the thing, let's go, that immediately shuts down the rest of the people. So I want you to think about in your workplaces, with your teams, where do you lie on this chart? 75, 38, 10. Are we alone? Are we with others? Does somebody just totally shrug it off? And to really think about that, because it has a huge impact on your employees, your teams, and your organization, and yourself to feel like they can speak up in the workplace. So we want to say, yes, that sounds bad. It sounds bad. It's like, whoa, how do we empower people to speak up? So number one, if you didn't watch the last video, I want you to go back in the series and make sure you watch the last video, because it was about the systems and structures and processes that need to be in place to give people a voice. And then now today, it's all about how do you actually give them, empower them, create the space for them to actually share their ideas. And so I want to share these three techniques with you today. The first one is creating something that is less challenging for the speaker. So I want you to think about this. When you do sit down in that meeting about the project, you look at the table, let's say there's 8 people. You can pretty much call out, oh, that's the one person who's going to always voice their opinion. There's the 3 that are going to share, and then those other 4, they never say anything. Well, what we need to do is take that step back and say, okay, we have a room of 8 people. How do we empower each of them to use their voice? Because what we can't do is just say, hey, we're thinking about this, what's your guys' idea? And just assume that everyone's going to share. So I had a client talk to me about this. They said, we're having a big annual meeting with my entire team, and I want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, because we have some people that are kind of just a little bit lower underneath others in the hierarchy of the company. And they have a lot of good opinions and ideas because they work at this level where they're seeing every piece. But this person just a couple above them is always extremely dominating, puts out their ideas, kind of pushes until their ideas are the ones accepted. What do you think I do? And so we sat down and we brainstormed. What kind of ways can you make sure that every single person gets a chance to really talk and share and explore together. And so what that really looks like is that you have to be unique in your approach. So for this client in this example, it was about, in that meeting, they actually picked little groups of people where, okay, we're going to have somebody who is these three different levels. They are going to work together on how this would look. And they broke them apart and they had them work together. And then they had one person share, and you only had 2 minutes to share, right? And then they had other ones where they did, each individual person was supposed to write an answer on a sticky note and pass it one to the left. And each of those other people were the ones that explained it for them. And so what the whole point of this is not that these specific ideas will work for you, but it's that create an environment that's less challenging for the speaker. Don't put them in an environment where you're going to put them on the spot of, oh, well, that's kind of stupid. Why would that work? Don't put them on the spot like that. Give them an ability that no matter who they are, you look for what would be the less challenging space for the speaker to speak up. What shall we do? And maybe that's that before the meeting you share, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about. Can you bring your ideas with you? For maybe some introverts who take a little bit more to just deeply embody and reflect what was said and think about what are the best options, rather than us extroverts who will just yell out all of our thoughts as they're happening. Put the space that is most comfortable for that speaker, for those people, and for your team and employees. So that's first and foremost. Think about, how do we create the least challenging environment for them? Now, second, talks about actually creating a less threatening place to the person being spoken to. And so what this looks like is very simple. It's that when we do actually give ideas and empower people to use their voice, it's all going to be about feedback, right? So if I'm used to being in charge and saying, hey, I think that we should do this, and then everyone around me goes, yes, yes, yes. The second I decide to make this change and say, no, I want to make sure I hear all these people, I, as the leader, am going to be a little bit on the defense, right? I'm going to feel a little threatened because everyone's going to be sharing their ideas. I'm going to be like, whoa, 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 my idea was right. So how do we create a less threatening environment to the person being spoken to, so that when employees do share their feedback, that we don't take it personal? And that's all about setting up structure and mindset. And so I want to share an example from Disney. Disney does a great thing where they use these 3 areas when they're going through a project. And the first area, and what is really interesting, is these all happen in different rooms. So I want you to think about that. If we're going to really ask for employee feedback and do that, is there a creative, unique way we can do that within our building, within our resources? And so at Disney, they have the Dreamer. And that's in a room where everyone sits around the dream. Okay, they sit around it and they just share in this circle. And what the whole point is that we are together in this circle, staring at this idea and just brainstorming everything that we can think of. Next, they move into what's called the Realist, and that actually is set up differently. They're all in rows looking at the problem. And the point of that is to really look at and say, what are some of the obstacles, challenges that are going to get it in the way? And what is the realistic way we're going to approach this? Because you've got to think, at Disney, they're coming up with innovative ways to do things. And then they eventually have to sit down and say, okay, we're not at this level of technology yet. So what could work? Oh, these ideas. And so they're looking right at the problem. And the last is the one where employees give their most feedback. And that's called the critic. And what was so interesting is the person who shared this story with me said that they actually go underneath this stairwell in one of their buildings. And underneath the stairwell is just a little more cramped, a little more. And what they do is their whole point is, hey, this is a safe space for you to say anything of what is wrong with this idea. What is potentially going to be the biggest challenge? What is scary? What is disruptive? Whatever it is. And you're able to openly voice your critique, just to say, I am just really fearful of trying this new idea. Or I don't think this is going to work. I don't think we have the manpower to do it, no matter what it is. And the point is that they go into this critic and then they backtrack to realist and they keep going back and forth until when you get to critic, there's nothing left to critique. They say that we have been open and honest about each part. Now, I want you to think about that in your workplace. How do you create something that's so open that the person that's being given the feedback, hey, this was my project, I'm the lead, isn't threatened? That they truly understand that, hey, this whole role here for a second is so every single person has their voice. When I went back to the example I gave before about one of my clients, The problem was that individual who always spoke up was very offended, was very hurt when people didn't listen and just go with what he said. And so it was about creating the space where he understood that you were allowed 2 minutes to talk. Each person was allowed 2 minutes. And then we're going to bring all these ideas up on the board. And by creating the space where you're not attacking a person, you're looking at a problem. Okay, this is our process right now, and it's not effective. We're wasting blank amount of time and productivity. And so it's not that person created a bad system. It's that the system is not working. Let's openly look at it. And so it's about how do we create a less threatening environment. And third and finally, it says, introduce new language and structure. And what that looks like is, hey, I just gave you this wonderful, fun idea from Disney about how they go through these processes. If you're going to implement something where it's about providing employee feedback, do not do what you've always done. That's the key mistake that people make. Just doing what you've always done is not going to get you any more empowerment, any more voice, any more contribution than you already do. So it's actually about introducing new language, new structure. So maybe the next time is, we're going to do a little something today where I pull out these sticky notes and I give them to every one of you, and I just want you to write your idea, and then we'll stick them on the board, right? Or we'll pass them along to each person. No matter what it is, it's all about designing the space that allows you to really be clear about what's going on. How can you really introduce this new language, this new feedback in a way that is successful for you? And so no matter where you're looking at this example, whether it's from the workplace as a leader, whether it's as a team, whether it's just for you as an employee, I want you to understand how to empower yourself by creating a space that's not challenging for you to share your ideas, by actually making sure that the person you're getting to speak to, or if you're the one being spoken to, that you create a space that's not threatening, that you understand that feedback is good, using their voice is good. And lastly, that you really create new language and new structures to understand that we have to create change to really be able to open space to new ideas, new voices, and new contributions. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you share this video, share this recording with anybody, because what I really want them to understand is that we need to empower our employees to use their voices. As organizations, the only way we move forward is by truly empowering our employees at all levels. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next week on our next weekly webinar series. Thank you very much, and have a good day.